My guest tonight is the descendant of India's oldest and most powerful business dynasty. Today he controls an industrial empire with a turnover of $6 billion, 20,000 crores, and a fixed asset base of $7 billion. He heads 40 companies with 150,000 employees spread over 17 countries. And he's only 29. He is Kumar Mangalam Birla, quiet but resolute. Combining traditional values with a modern outlook, he bears his mandate comfortably. When I look around me and I see that those who have far less flaunt so much, the low-key ethos of Asia's youngest billionaire is surely a paradigm. In their first ever television interview, it is my privilege to talk to Kumar Mangalam Birla and his graceful wife, Neerja. First, I want to thank you so much for this interview, because I know that all the major television networks have been vying to get you, and I'm very grateful, very privileged that you've given your first television appearance to me. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to be here.
You know, we've never had a chance of talking about your childhood. What sort of childhood did you have?
I had a very normal, very happy childhood. We've always shared a very warm, informal relationship with our parents. There were no unnecessary, unreasonable restrictions. At the same time, we knew what our peripheries were. It was always a two-way communication. Either they convinced us or we convinced them.
Okay, that's good.
That was very nice.
But you were the only son, so were you in any way spoiled or pampered?
Unfortunately not.
They didn't spoil you or pamper you.
I'm glad they didn't.
Were you a good student as well?
I was a fairly good student, and my strategy as a student was to absorb as much as I could in class, so that I didn't have to work much at home.
Okay.
And that seemed to work fairly well.
Did you have a lot of friends when you were young? Were you very...
Not too many friends, but a few friends and very good friends.
And you still have them today?
And they are very good friends even today.
Your grandfather says that you were very shy and reticent as a child.
I don't think I was shy and reticent, but I've always been a very private person and an introvert, which I think I am even today.
But now with so many new responsibilities and having to communicate so much with people, you must be having to force yourself to become an extrovert.
I think one has to make an effort, but it's something I've learned to enjoy.
Were you made aware early of what your role would eventually be?
Not really. I wasn't made aware as in someone sitting across the table and explaining things to me, but I think it was just a very natural process. One just grew into the role. It wasn't something that was thrust upon you, it just kind of evolved.
Your father, Aditya Birla, is remembered and admired as a visionary. He turned his corporate legacy into a global empire. I never had the privilege of meeting him, but what sort of a person was he?
He was quite a unique person, really. The first thing that struck you about him was the fact that he was very fair, whether at work or at home. And of course, he was very brilliant at his work. He worked very hard. But I think outside of work, he had a lot of interests which he pursued. He was a very good pilot.
A pilot?
That's right.
Oh, no, I don't think many people know this.
He was a good artist, he was a good cook, he was a good orator. So he was quite a multi-dimensional personality. He was quite unique.
No doubt from childhood you must have been groomed with the idea that, you know, one day you would be taking over this business empire. But that day came upon you much earlier than anybody could have expected. How did it all happen?
Well, he took ill a couple of years ago, and the whole thing kind of moved faster than one would have expected it to, and I suddenly found myself with a lot more responsibilities much earlier than I had expected.
Yes. How old was he when he took ill?
He was 49.
49. Did he ever talk about his personal feelings at that time? What he was going through?
Very seldom. He didn't like to talk about it much. He didn't want me to feel the pressure, because of the fact that he wasn't well. But that was a period of grooming and a lot of learning for me. And he kind of made sure that I went through the entire gamut of our operations, and that was very useful.
In December 1993, when the Indo-Gulf was announcing its foray into the international capital market, I think that was the first time, wasn't it, when your father took a back seat?
That's right.
What happened?
That was quite an interesting incident, actually. This was when both Grasim and Indo-Gulf were launching Euro issues, and I was actually leading the Indo-Gulf issue, and my father was spearheading the Grasim issue.
Okay.
And here I was at this press conference before the launch of the issue, and I suddenly saw a very familiar face in the audience, and it was him. And I froze, and all the reporters there were taken aback. And I just wanted to stop saying what I was saying and laugh, which I couldn't do then, but
No.
we laughed a lot about it afterwards. But that was very typical of him.
To surprise you?
Absolutely.
Did
And I think I'll always carry that incident with me.
So you were 24, an age when most boys are leading a carefree life and having a good time, and you were busy taking over India's largest business empire. What was it like? Was it tough?
Sure, it was tough. There were fleeting moments when one felt, felt overawed, but it was a responsibility that had to be taken on.
But Kumar, in a way, you've taken over an already built empire. What more would you like to achieve?
I think that for an organization that's already multinational, what I would like to achieve is to make it a supranational. And I know that that's a very tall order, but I believe that we have the depth of the organization. We have the organizational stamina and resilience to make that happen.
There is always a perception that family-run corporations are not professionally managed. Is this true?
Yeah, I think that's a misconception. I don't think that being professionally managed or not has anything to do with the ownership structure. It's more to do with the way things are done in an organization. It's more to do with whether things happen in an ad hoc fashion, haphazardly, or they move to a system. And by those standards, I think that we are well managed, professionally managed.
So how do you walk that fine line between continuing the family tradition and setting your own stamp?
Yeah, I think more important than setting your own stamp is what is good for the organization. And before taking any major decision that I have in the last 1.5 years, that's the question I've always asked myself, that is this good for the organization in the long run? Yeah. I've never believed in change for the sake of change, mindless change.
Certainly.
And at the same time, if change is required, because the external environment is changing so rapidly,
that's true.
and if we do need to change some aspects of our management process, then I think we must.
But you know, one more thing I must tell you is you're not seen as a women-friendly organization. Why is that?
I think that's because we have 2 or 3 women in the senior management cadre across the group.
That's it?
That's it. That's very few, and I think that's because of all the traditional normal issues like women not being able to work long hours in the past, not being able to work on weekends, not being able to travel, those sort of things that don't hold true anymore. And it's very interesting. I was at the IIMs and the IITs this year for the pre-placement talk,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought that some of the most interesting, some of the most relevant and probing questions came from the girls. So I think we can't ignore each other for long.
No,
We'll break the ice soon.
I'm glad to hear that. But you know, you're quite right. There is an entire new generation of women in this workforce, which is incredible. I see it myself, whether it's in the television industry or movie.
Absolutely.
They're very, they're coming out in some ways even stronger than men. Do you agree with me?
I think that they know their mind, they know what they want to achieve, and they're willing to work towards it, which is a very positive thing.
When you had this meeting with these women, the men and the women, what was your assessment at the end of it? How did you compare their attitude to work?
I thought the men were very task-oriented. They're very clued on to what, sort of things like what would be the take-home pay, what would be the perks, and the women had their concerns were more cultural, in the sense that, would they be able to fit into the organization? Would there be adjustment problems?
People's attitudes towards them, perhaps.
That's right.
Can you describe your management style?
Our management style is very participative. We call it participative management by consensus and consultation. And that essentially means that we like to involve people at all the levels in the organization. And we try and give each one a platform from which he or she can contribute.
Their views.
Absolutely.
What would you say is the forte of the Birla Group?
I think besides many other things, it's the culture. We have a very strong cultural binding, and we believe that we combine the best cultures of family-run organizations and of multinationals.
I was also reading somewhere about the system of accounting that you have. It's called the Partha. What is it exactly? I've never understood what it is.
It's actually, it's like a budget. It's a daily budget. And we get a report from each of our business units every day as to what the variances are from that budget, where they've overspent or where they have perhaps produced more than the Partha, and therefore there's a gain, how the quality matches against the standard quality that has been laid down for them. So it's a very integral part of our MIS. Your
company started in 1860s, I believe.
That's right.
So it's been handed down since then till now.
It has been. It has evolved as time has gone by. It has been refined, been made more focused, more user-friendly, but the basic system remains the same.
What kind of people do you like to work with?
That's an interesting question. I think I like to work with people who are very task-oriented, people who are willing to learn and absorb from everyone and everything around them. Also, importantly, people who seek success, and not only seek success, but also admire the success of others.
Let's say you were looking for a candidate for a senior position in your company. What quality would you look for in him?
Firstly, I'd look for team building skills, because we want people who can work in teams and around teams, rather than people who tend to be empire builders. Also, someone who has a killer instinct, in that he's quick to sense an opportunity and move quickly. And I think what's also very important is someone who will be a constructive voice of dissent, which means that if I'm about to take an important decision, he would say, I think, Mr. Birla, this is a perspective which we haven't looked at, or we need to examine before taking a decision.
Do you have the killer instinct, Kumar?
We'll have to wait and watch.
Okay. Are you cautious by nature, or are you a risk taker?
I take risks sometimes, but very cautiously, if you know what I mean.
Okay, I understand what you mean. If you weren't born a Birla, what would you be doing?
I've never thought about this, but it would have to be something entrepreneurial. I think I like being my own boss. I can't think of myself working for someone else.
Does your net worth ever boggle your mind?
I'm not sure about the net worth boggling my mind, but it's my net weight that's bothering me at the moment.
No.
I've been on a binge for far too long.
Oh no, don't tell me that's increasing.
Absolutely.
Well, so is your net worth. So we're all right. Well, I'm looking forward to meeting Neerja now and having a little talk with your wife as well. It's lovely to have you with us. Thank you so much for coming.
It's my pleasure being here, Simi.
This is your first television appearance as well, isn't it?
It is.
You're not nervous?
I'm really nervous.
No, don't say that. But you know, I'm so happy to have this opportunity of talking to both of you together, and I'd like to know just a little bit more about you both. When did you first meet?
We got engaged about 10 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and we met a few times before we got engaged.
It was an arranged marriage, was it?
That's right.
Yes.
And how many times did you meet each other before you got married?
Twice?
Three or four times? Twice?
Twice.
Did you get a chance of talking to each other?
We talked quite a lot, actually. Surprisingly, about very innocuous things like, you know, what she was
College.
doing, about college, about, I was studying then, so about what I was studying, what her hobbies were, who her friends were.
Just something very general.
So now, 10 years later, you have a daughter?
Ananyashri.
Ananyashri is actually a name that both of us just coined, and we think it means unparalleled glory.
Oh, that's nice.
We like the sound of it very much.
I like the sound of it too.
And the meaning's nice too.
Glory, it's lovely. But your daughter's how old? How old is she now?
Almost 3.
So she's going to be growing up in the new millennium. That's going to be her era. What sort of a future do you both see for her? A Birla in the new millennium.
Since she's going to be growing into such a competitive environment, I think it's important she gets a good education.
I'd like her to be a career woman. I'd like her to be well educated. I'd be very happy if she has the aptitude and is interested in joining me in my business, if she's willing to qualify and work hard for it.
Would you choose her education for her the way your father chose yours?
I'd help her to decide. I'd guide her. I'd provide her with a data bank. But the final decision would be hers, as was the case with me.
What kind of a father is Kumar?
Very doting, and my daughter really bullies him.
Oh, okay.
She's got him round her little finger.
She has me dancing to her tunes. She loves telling me how to do things.
Telling you how to do things.
Absolutely.
She should become the chairman one day.
She loves sitting with him on his meetings. She goes and sits in his lap and just listens to what's happening as though she can understand everything.
But don't you find, I mean, all fathers and daughters have such a special bond. I mean, they can just sit and stare at each other for hours.
Absolutely. And my daughter's just 3, and she already wants to do everything that her father's doing. Like every morning he goes to office and she wants to go with him. She thinks that since her holidays have started, even his should start. So things like that.
Your father had a passion for painting, right?
Right.
What would you say is your passion?
I'm fond of music.
You've also trained in music, haven't you?
I learned a little music when I was 4 or 5.
And you sing?
I used to.
Doesn't sing anymore?
I gave it up long ago.
Neerja?
No, he does sing. He still sings. And he sings really well.
Are you both similar or opposites?
I think we're similar in some ways, and our own people in a lot of ways. I think that's nice because
we complement each other.
and we'll end up doing a lot of varied things here, a lot of varied activities, which I think is interesting.
What ways are you opposites? I find that always more interesting than the similars.
I think temperamentally we're different. She's more cool. Doesn't get ruffled very easily, whereas I can tend to get quite agitated quite soon.
Mm.
He's very clear-minded, very definite, and very sure of himself all the time.
And he's a perfectionist, isn't he?
He is.
Very methodical, very precise and perfectionist.
Absolutely. And whenever there's something on my mind and I discuss it with him, he always has a solution to every problem.
You feel you can talk to him about anything?
Absolutely.
Now, what do you think is the most important factor that goes into making a successful marriage?
I think it's communication,
I'd agree, I think, to be able to communicate.
amongst other things.
I think it's important to keep aside time for each other and finding common interests and spending time doing things that we both like to do. A lot of sharing.
Did you have any ambitions to do any work or ever?
No, not really.
No.
I've always wanted to be a hasif and be a good mother. I think that's my priority right now.
Neerja, after you've raised a family, is there anything special you'd like to do? I mean, there are so many opportunities for you, ready-made opportunities. How would you like to use them?
You know, actually, once I have more time and once my children are a little older, I'd like to start a school. I think it will be a very nice and a very satisfying experience.
I'm sure it would. What is on your wish list?
I think that what's most important is to have peace of mind.
Well, you normally have to wish for something that you don't have, so you don't have peace of mind.
No, I don't think that's true, but I think there's...
You can always do with more.
you can always do with more. You also have, I think, to make an effort.
Yes.
A lot of it is in the mind.
What are you most proud of him for, Neerja?
I really admire the way he's coping with all the added responsibilities. It's really creditable.
You know, when I asked a few people, what do you want to know about Kumar Mangalam Birla? Most of them said to me, just ask him, what does it feel like to be a Birla with all that money and all that power? So I ask you, what does it feel like being a Birla?
I believe all the power and the money is not anything personal. It's something that we hold in trust. And it's this whole spirit of trusteeship. It's a great legacy that I've inherited, and it's my duty to carry it forward, and it's something that I enjoy doing very much.
It's such a joy to talk to both of you. It's like a new soft breeze. Thank you so much for coming. Really love meeting you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.